But to get the culture right, you've got to have the strategy, the structure, and the culture all aligned. Most organizations can get a vision statement and a purpose and a strategy put together. The church, in this case, did not have their organizational capability, technology, and talent management at all. A lot of organizations do. But it's that last piece. It's getting people with their hearts and their physical presence. It's folks who are emotionally committed. That's really what you're looking for, and that's what we have to be all about as leaders in trying to achieve. And that's what we're trying to do at Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare. And we're in the top 10 nationally in solid organ transplants. In fact, we did Steve Jobs' transplant right here in Memphis. Little story about that. We had Steve in town for about 4 months, and when he left, about, I guess, the day after, I got a call from one of his staff members who said, "Hey, Steve left something in the bedside drawer. He bought a house, and he had furnished it. You need to send somebody over there and get it right away and need to FedEx it to us." This is 2009. So I sent the person who really was handling Steve's stay over, and she got it, brought it back, and it was the prototype iPad. And she said, "What do you think this thing's worth?" And I said, a lot of money, and we got to send it back. But it just showed you Steve really developed his own products. And if y'all have read his book, you know that that is the case. The guy truly was a genius. We obviously sent the iPad quickly back. So we're doing well. We are the best in the region. We know that to be the best, we've got to continue to improve our clinical outcomes and provide exceptional patient care that's family-centered. Our care delivery model has to be one that's restructured and is sustainable for the new environment. We've got to shift the mindset of so many of our even executives and leaders from solo thinking about their individual hospitals or organizations to system thinking. This is true in so many industries. All of us have some real problems getting to system thinking. That enables you to optimize, to really get to scale and efficiency. And we want to create a consistent brand experience. And if you have the solo mentality, you're not going to get that. So shifting our culture to more system thinking, when you're making decisions, thinking about the whole and not just the parts, is really so key. So what is organizational culture? It's a lot of things, and it really is hard to put your finger on it. I mean, you all know it. When you go into an organization, you can tell if it's got a healthy culture, pretty much. I hope at the end of this session, you're going to be able to have even more information about what signs to look for. But it's about attitudes, traditions, unwritten ground rules that result in spirit and energy, historic behaviors. I think it's this kind of invisible pushing that everybody in the organization feels toward a certain direction and type of decision making. It truly is about living the values, though. Ultimately. Now I'm going to talk about 4 tools that we're using in our organization that I think are excellent leadership training tools. They're tools that I have found, and I'm 62 years old. I've been looking at leadership and a student of leadership for the last 40 years. And I say student of leadership because I'm always learning. As Shad said, if you Google books and articles on leadership, there are a range of numbers that you'll get, but my most recent Google was 269 million. So there's a lot written about leadership. There's not a cookbook that you can open up to a particular chapter and find a solution to problems. It is all over the board. But these tools are some of the best that I've seen, and some of the best that have really helped me and my leadership in my organization in terms of building a really, really strong culture. So the first is this results cone. And it just seems obvious that, yeah, thinking drives behavior and drives results. But it's not as intuitive as you would think. I mean, this is something you have to teach. This is something you have to learn. Behavior is driven by mindset. How we think truly drives our behavior. A great example in the Zappos video. The woman who was talking about the cash. Before Zappos, I might have taken the cash. I mean, her thinking related back to the Zappos values. Before Zappos, again, she may have had different behavior. She may have taken it and just kept it. But the result was that she decided to take it and wow somebody with it. I mean, that's what the results cone is all about. Another example is people have a thought habit of, for me to win, somebody else has to lose. So what does that result in? A behavior that's unhealthy, no team spirit or cooperation, people unwilling to share information, and the results, time and energy is wasted. You don't get the kind of output that you'd like to have. And lastly, in the church, if there's lack of clarity about your role, there's an inability to prioritize. If you don't really know what your priorities should be, if you don't have your role clearly defined, and then the results are stagnation, no growth, is exactly what we're seeing. Most people don't realize the correlation between thought habits and behaviors and results. But the mindset that we want are people who truly live the values. You know, Jack Welch did a lot of lecturing as CEO of General Electric, and he used to talk about 4 types of leaders, and it gets back to this model. The first type is the leader you want. A leader gets great results and lives the values. Second type, somebody who gets bad results, doesn't live the values. That's an easy one to deal with. You find a new career path for them, or you exit the organization. Third is the person who doesn't get great results but lives the values. You want to try to coach that person. And the last is the toughest. It's a person who gets great results but is a horse's butt, doesn't live the values. And that's the person that's hard to deal with, but ultimately, too, if the values aren't embraced, they have to leave the organization. The value of innovation, if you're really going to achieve it in an organization, you've got to stay curious. You've always got to stay in a curious mode. Steve Ballmer was the CEO of Microsoft when Steve Jobs came out with the iPhone. And his competitive product was a product called Vista. Some of you may remember that. He was quoted in the USA Today as saying there's no chance that the iPhone is going to get any significant market share. No chance. In the end, of course, we all know the story. Vista was a flop. Ballmer couldn't have been more wrong about the iPhone, but he couldn't accept the concept that people would work on screens without keypads. That was just so foreign to him. It didn't fit his picture. He would have been better off having a high level of curiosity about this new and different kind of phone, which went on, of course, to make billions of dollars for Apple. We all have a shadow of influence, and think about it. Think who has influenced you, your parents, your coach, your teachers at school. Leadership actions and behaviors really influence tremendously, and they do shape the culture. I'm sure you've seen different fraternities that have different cultures, and all you have to do is look at the leadership to find out what's driving that culture. So, as you guys think about your careers, I mean, again, be extremely aware of your actions and the influence that they can have on not only your fraternity brothers, but eventually the employees who work for you. I mean, if I'm constantly preaching frugality in the organization and cost reduction, and yet I'm taking board members out and buying $200 bottles of wine, I mean, what message does that send? And that word gets out. I mean, there's no question. People observe it. They'll talk about it. An expense report gets processed. The clerk sees it. It's amazing how quickly information can spread. People ask me about leadership attributes and what's the most important one. I don't know that there is one that's the most important, but I know the one that I look for that I think is the one that results in the most successful leaders, and that's self-awareness. And that, by self-awareness, I mean your ability to constantly seek feedback about how you're doing. And you go out and actively seek it. You don't wait for it to come to you. You're casting a shadow. People see how you're doing as a leader. Go to your peers, go to your subordinates, certainly go to your supervisor. and just do a check. How am I doing? And then with that data, you adjust your behavior, you adjust your mindset, and you adjust your leadership style. I have a chief operating officer who's just gotten in the role who will be my successor. And at the end of every one of our weekly meetings, he has an agenda item. It says, any feedback, ? So it prompts me to give him any feedback and give him any coaching. And I just can't tell you all how important that is. So one more tool, and that's Be Here Now. David touched on this a lot last night. Get your heads out of your cell phones. Pay attention. When you're in meetings, we have a rule at Methodist LeBonheur Healthcare: no cell phones, no laptops, no emails. If you're going to sit in a meeting and follow an agenda, then follow the agenda. The meetings are richer. They're full of a lot of content because people are paying attention. They're focused on the agenda item and on the topic at hand. And again, this one has really helped me and helped me personally. I mean, I really, if I have one regret in my life, it's the fact that I did spend too much time at work. And the people who suffered for that were the family. Now, I've been married 42 years, and fortunately I got a great wife and great kids, but at times we'd be at dinner and the kids had us saying, well, Dad's zoned out again, and they'd be right. I'd be thinking about business, or my mind would be somewhere else and not with the family. So I've really tried to adjust for that. I was with my mother, who was dying about 6 months ago in a hospice, and I was sitting there talking to her, and I almost pulled out my iPhone to look at my emails. And because of Be Here Now and this high consciousness we have of this, I said, no, this is the woman who has supported me. She's the reason I'm successful, and she's the reason I'm who I am today. I don't need to be looking at my iPhone. So it's an important principle. I think it's an important principle in terms of culture of the organization or your own personal growth. And I really ask you to pay attention to it. Organizations have cultures. The only choice that we have is whether we shape them or they shape us. And to shape it, it's not a quick journey. It's a long journey. You've got to get everybody's heads in the game, and you've got to really do fundamental leadership development and be sure that you really have the best leaders in place. Because when you do, man, the performance is outstanding. And the examples that I gave of rich culture, if you look at their 10Ks or any of the financials on those companies, they do great. They're high performance, they embrace the values, they've got all the attributes that you see on that platform, and they're getting high results.